You are listening to PolicyBazaar.ae's The Policy Project. We've got you covered.
So, hello and welcome to a special Women's Day episode of the Policy Project by Policy Bazaar. I'm Toshita and I head the business at PolicyBazaar.ae. I'm thrilled to be chatting with Malvika and Rashi, who also happen to be my incredible friends. So, guys, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Hi. Thank you for having us.
Thanks a lot for having us. And I'm really looking forward to this one.
Same here. So, today, before we jump into today's discussion, I just wanted to kind of take a moment and say how proud I am of all of us of leaving our lives back home in India and starting our journeys and setting up our businesses and lives here in the UAE. So, we just want to tell our listeners and our audience about our journeys and inspire them more about, what can they do to kind of get the taste of the success that we've had and how, as in the amazing women that we are, and how we've led the way.
It's so nice to hear that, Toshita. And I think I rarely actually hear women say we've come a long way, because we're so
Yeah.
hardwired to say you've come a long way, that I rarely actually have a moment where I can join a tribe of women and say, hey, actually, we're pretty good. We're
Yeah.
pretty amazing. So yeah, I join you in saying we're pretty amazing. I gotta go
We
drink.
are,
It is
yes.
one of the hardest things to do. And I think it's so deeply conditioned in our upbringing that even now, even though we want to say this, I feel sometimes there's this conflict inside. I want to say, oh my God, I'm
Yeah.
so proud of myself. And I can say it to myself, but it's hard for me to say it to people.
So I'll start with Rashi. Rashi, you're an amazing nutritionist. I've been consulting you for I don't know how many years now, and I cannot even begin to thank you what difference you've made in my life. So if you could just tell us more about your journey and how that was for you.
Yeah, so the thing is, I run an online nutrition practice. It's called Nutrition in Sync. And this is something I started about 3 years ago. And it's a platform that basically, we cater to all the nutritional needs of women in every phases, like every phase of her life. So whether she's struggling with PCOS, perimenopause, fertility, trying to get pregnant, weight loss, food psychology, all of that, right? Anxiety, all of these things we help with. And then I have play, which is, I know you're saying it took a back seat, but that's a very mild way of putting it. It was an absolute disaster. So this is my second attempt at working on a healthy FMCG brand. It's called Play, and we're 100% clean chocolate. And here I believe I'm solving a very big problem, because all of us as women, we love chocolate. We know this. We love
Yeah.
chocolate, all right? But we hate ourselves for loving it so much. All of us
Yes.
have that, we feel bad about loving it so much. And this is one experience I wanted to change for people, when it comes to chocolate. So I want to try and change the experience that we have with chocolate based on what our modern day lifestyle is. So it's 100% clean chocolate. It's rooted in, making indulgence an empowering experience and not an addictive one. So yeah, in short, that's what I'm doing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I think that's truly inspiring. Malvika, you were by far the most successful host of, the most popular breakfast show, Bollywood breakfast show in UAE.
You took
And one day you just dropped that and you ventured into your own journey. Tell us more about it. How did that start and how's that journey been for you?
So drama actually started in my life when I was much younger. So when I was a young person and I was 10 years old, I discovered a drama room in my own school, and I had a tough childhood. And I think, like many of us, right, we are still actually recovering from the childhoods that we had.
Yeah.
And so drama actually started in my life there. Funnily, drama gave me the job in radio, because when they were looking for people to become hosts and radio licensing had just launched in India, they didn't know where to look for presenters. Like, where do you look? And drama became a great place to start looking for people who can improv and who can talk. And so that actually drama gave me radio, and I just returned to drama after many years. And I think it just gotten to a point at the radio station where, while the job was fantastic and I had the best colleagues and it's great to be making money and fame is so addictive and awesome, but at some point I was like, okay, but is it really that hard? Like, am I going to work every morning and thinking, am I going to be able to crack this?
And how did it? Because obviously, going from us, getting your salary paid out every month and having your fixed expenses planned, from that kind of a stable financial environment, taking the plunge to saying, hey, you know what? let's park this and I'll venture out on my own and I'll see, and we'll see how that works out. How did you navigate that?
So I've never had a family where my parents were paying my bills. I've been paying my bills as long as I remember. I've had a job since I was 15 years old. And actually, one of my big concerns when I quit ARN was how am I going to pay for my parents? Because my dad was very sick and we had huge medical bills and support needs, right? So what I actually did was, and I guess we as women don't talk about the financial aspect of entrepreneurship enough.
Yeah.
And I think we really need to break that down for women. What I was able to do was I took a loan to buy the business. And the first year of the business, I had an amazing boss who said, you can do both things at the same time. So I was able to continue to take my salary out of ARN while running the business. I was able to make that money, put it back into the loan that I had taken, close that, set up enough with my gratuity and whatever payouts I got to be able to set my parents up for the next 10 years. And I did all that math so that I think for us as women, right, a lot of the guilt of being able to make this big entrepreneurial jump is I might sink, but I don't want to sink anyone else along with me.
Yeah.
I mean, I was like, okay, cool. This is a risk I take on my shoulders. And I must say, it paid off both financially as well as creatively. So I'm glad I did. I'm glad I did.
Awesome. So I think now we've kind of set the tone as to who we are, what we do, and what are our backgrounds. I think in the next segment, let's answer some questions to decode, which, we see these jargons and these headlines being thrown around. How are women breaking glass ceilings in business and life? So Rashi, as women, especially working women, our lives can be demanding. So what would you recommend to us as to how do we manage the stress and this overload of information better in our lives?
So women are always running on empty and doing a lot more than they can do. And then they don't feel okay. And then, of course, at some point, of course, it'll play up in their health concerns and all of that, right? And then nobody else around them is also happy because they are not happy. So I'm always asking my clients two things. Number one, tell me what are your core values and pick three. In fact, they say pick two. But in my head, I really am not able to pick those two. So for me, I have three, right? So anyway, that's one. And I think second would be what brings me joy? What really brings me joy? And I've really started asking myself this question a lot. I think you can only ask it when you're in a place where you've spent enough time working, so you're stable financially. Then it's easier to ask this question, you'll get the right answer. But that's only possible if I've grown financially, right? So maybe a lot of people will not be able to answer this question right now, but it's so important to ask yourself that, because then you can navigate and change your life based on that, right? Everyone doesn't need to be a sexy hot mom and have abs or be a size 8. Does that bring you joy? Because you have to give up a lot of things to be able to be a size 8 and 10, if you're a size 12 and 16. So are you willing to do that? So I feel the minute you ask yourself these questions, automatically you'll have clarity. But to reach that answer, it takes a while. And then balance is your balance, right? It's your perspective.
And you mentioned core value. Like how does one, like somebody who has no idea, like obviously there are women who haven't been to a therapist yet, and some who have been and probably not to a good one. So how do we like what is the process of finding this core value, and how do I pinpoint what is my core value?
So there is a long process of finding this out, but the simplest way to say this here, I've done it in two. So your core values also change every decade. They can change because we
Right.
evolve as people, right? So it goes down to your
Right.
childhood, goes down to which memories are most important to you, and all of those things. So it's the best way I can say it is go to this website called The New Happy, and there they have
Yeah.
a section on core values, and they tell you how to get there.
Awesome. I mean, that sounds like an exercise for all of
Yeah.
us to do.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right that the more we're able to filter out the noise and what doesn't match our vibe,
Yeah.
that I think would be great. Malu, now the next question is for you. So you are in a very unique industry, right? Here in the UAE, aren't many people running that kind of a business at the scale that you are running. It's a balanced industry. And how, like, what were your bigger challenges setting up that business in that particular industry? And what are the like women specific challenges that you face, like being a woman, being the boss, being the woman, and how do you make decisions for yourself, for your team? So in your space, how does that look like as a woman
So I
boss?
think for both Rashi and me, I think we're actually in pretty female dominated in terms of the workforce, right? So you have probably more nutritionists, more people talking about food, more people talking about health who are women on the floor. Similarly, even in education and drama, the arts, you have a lot more women on the floor. The change actually starts happening as you go higher up the ladder. Are these women owned businesses, and are the financial decisions and the board decisions being made by women? And that's where it starts to get a bit diluted. So if you walk into a school, any random school, and you ask to meet the board, you will find a 70 to 30 men to women ratio. But if you'll ask to see the primary school teachers, they'll be 99% women.
Yeah.
So what's happening is the people making the money and the people who are making the decisions are all men or predominantly men. And the women have the customer facing jobs, or they have the caregiving roles, right? So I think both of us come from care industries in that sense. Our job is really to care. So for me, it really doesn't work. And I feel like I don't, I mean, you keep seeing all these business coaches on Instagram telling you to like not take things personally. And I'm like, who are you? Like, these things keep me up at night. So I don't know a way to not care. So I don't think a business model where I don't care would work. But I'll tell you what's really funny, Toshita, is like I've so often been told that, Arey, but you're such a like a nice, friendly person. Then when it comes to
Yeah.
negotiation, you became so aggressive and
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah, yeah.
catty and like
I've heard
I
that
can
too.
do both
Yeah.
things, you know. Like
Your face
I
is so innocent, and like your email doesn't match your face. I've gotten that, and
yeah.
I'm like, what do you mean?
What do you mean?
We were very innocent.
I can be nurturing and I can
Yeah.
care. And I can also, because I care so much, I will, I will snap and I will bite. If
Yeah.
you touch my team, I will bite. You better know that before you do business with me. Like,
And you deal with a lot of schools and these educational institutes, and as you mentioned that probably the senior management or the decision makers are more, the ratio of male is higher to female. However, the ones who are executing the whole strategy, etc., the teachers and everything, they are more female. But when you do go and negotiate with the decision maker, who probably is the male boss sitting on the other side, do you get ever a vibe about how they would deal differently if you were not female? And what are the I would say, what are the advantages, and what, I wouldn't say disadvantages, but what are the things that we as women should be careful of, and what are the strategies or the skills that we can apply when we are negotiating to hold our ground?
I think when we're negotiating, you first of all have to know what you want when you go in. And I think play the cards that you have. To me, it's as simple as that. It's like, okay, are you going to take me any more seriously because I smile more and I seem caring and I like, okay, cool, I'll play that. If that's the role you want me to play, I'll play it, sure. But I'll get my deal at the end of the day. So I feel like play the cards you've got. And it's not just about I mean, I've so often, very recently actually, I had someone speak to a pregnant member on my team saying that, Are, she's so pregnant now, she'll be out of work for the next 1 year, she's
Yeah.
not going to do anything. And it's like, actually, she can do 20 times more than you on a day. So reevaluate that statement and come back to me with numbers. Like, women on a bad day in 1 hour will do 20 times what men can do on their best day, like on their best day. And then I say this with my eyes closed.
Awesome.
Toshita, you've been asking us questions all along. I want to ask you, I think
Yes.
you're in a far more male dominated space than both Rashi and myself. I think insurance has traditionally been a man's playing field.
Yes.
And there must be women who are sitting on the fence at this moment, looking up at the glass ceiling, wondering, is it worth it taking the elevator up? What advice do you have for them? Should they? And how can they?
Absolutely, absolutely. See, insurance, as I understand, is, yes, it is a male-dominated sector industry, and many a times I'm probably the only female leader in the room, right, with like a couple of other males in the room, and I have kind of been through that journey where it was like, oh, I mean, I got looks where I was told, oh, your whatever you're saying is not so important, and your view, you can keep it to yourself. And I got even, they used to cut me in between. But I always believe, and I've said this, multiple times. One of my first bosses, who was a female, she taught me this. She said, there is power of a sword, there is power of a pen, and there is power of a woman. So don't ever underestimate that, and see, like, you just do you. And you have to pave, like, if we don't do it, then the generation next to us will not, they will not get that advantage. And obviously there are women leaders who've paved this way for us, so why let it go waste? So I would say it's hard, but we got there. Like, I mean, you don't take permission, you change the rules, for yourself, you change the rules for the industry. So I think this may be a male dominated space, but we as women are here to stay, and we're right there with our male counterparts. And I'm not absolutely, I have no fear to raise my opinion in a room. It took me some time to get there, but I see that, with the new hires that we have who are female, they're super confident, and they don't shy away from saying things or being considered as, they may come across as stupid or foolish, or shall I say this or shall I not say this. And I think, as parents, who are bringing up their children, especially girls, it's very important to feed them that, talk, it's fine. Like, you may not say the right thing all the time, but don't keep it in. Like, there's no right or wrong answer. And you'll eventually realize, if you didn't say the right thing, you'll be either told, but you don't have to shut up. You have a voice, and let that be heard.
This reminds me of, have you all heard of Brené Brown said this in one of her interviews, I think with Oprah.
Yes.
Unutilized creativity is not benign, it gets masticized, which means it becomes cancerous. Talk to women who've given up their careers or anything they love, any purpose for their child or their family. Talk to them when they are 40, 45, when everybody's like left and is on their own or whatever. And she will only have regret and grief and just self, not hate is a very powerful word, but you know,
Criticism.
yeah,
Yeah.
because unutilized creativity will become that. It will become grief and all of those things. So I think
Yeah.
the minute you realize, shit, this is true, then you'll never want to like shut up. You'll be like, it's fine. I don't
Yeah.
care if I'm wrong, but I don't want it to become a cancer in my body. Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Yeah.
I think that made.
I couldn't agree more. And I feel also like Women's Day is a great opportunity because I'm so tired of Women's Day being about pink cupcakes and free manicures. That really bothers me. It's like,
Yeah.
you know what, just can you just
Rose.
pay us as much as you pay them? And like, can we
Ma'am,
actually talk
here's
about stuff that matters? you know?
ma'am, here's a rose for you because it's Women's Day. It's
Yeah,
like
it's like,
what we
no,
get at
I don't want
Max,
a rose
right?
actually. I want a fair maternity policy. How about you look at that?
Yeah.
But I think what we can do as women in the room, and I hope that every woman watching this does it, is maybe just today we call a man out. I'm actually going to call the person who said that to my pregnant colleague and say, hey, you know what you said in that meeting was actually a little bit unfair. Because as I was saying that, I was thinking to myself, why haven't I told him yet? Why
Yeah.
haven't I called him out on it? I'm speaking about it in another interview, but I haven't told him. So I'm going to use Women's Day to call out a man on his behavior and say, hey, no, that was uncalled for. And you got to stop that. And hopefully that will prevent him and other men doing that. And maybe they're doing it unknowingly, but we've got to stop it, right? We've got to stop the bad behavior. A rap on the knuckles has to be has to be handed out.
I think also I wanted to add one more thing, that as when we're just getting out in the corporate world, it's very important who your who do you look up to, who your boss is, who your manager is. That could be male, female, irrespective. And I've also been very lucky with the male managers that I've worked with. Two things clearly they've taught me: a, how I don't want to be in life, right? That's one great thing कि मुझे नहीं बनना ऐसा, like I don't want to be like this. And some have been way, like, in terms of flexibility wise, you want to take the decision, it's on you. If there is some time that you will fail, I will be there to support you. So I think we also sometimes have to give credit to the absolute great male colleagues and managers and
Absolutely.
bosses that we work with who
Yeah.
pave this way for us, because in that work environment, unless you have that support, no matter how bold and how great and arrogant you want to be, you will be shut down, and then there are policies around it which you can't get past, right? That segment was really insightful, guys. Our next segment is Ask Away, where we respond to the audience questions. So, Fatima is asking, what's that one thing you wish you had known when you first started your woman boss journey? Let's say.
I'll go with this one. When you are signing a contract, think of the worst case scenario. Think of the worst case scenario. Even if you love this person, it's your husband who you're doing a merger with, your whoever, your best friend, whatever, right? Think of the worst case scenario. And at that time, keep your soft heart, cute, whatever, all this, just lock it away.
We have another question from Priya. She's asking, how do you handle setbacks or failures, and what is the key to bouncing back stronger? Rashi, this like question has your name written all over it.
Um, After Protein Bake Shop, I realized that entrepreneurship is about how well you handle disappointments. If you are good and you regulate your nervous system in a way that you're okay to handle a disappointment, and see, you're allowed to cry, you're allowed to feel bad. I put myself in the victim mode for a long time, first during my divorce, then during my toxic relationship, then during Protein Bake Shop, and then I was like, no, this is not going to help. The lesser time I spend feeling bad, by which I don't mean that I don't want to feel bad, but if I make my nervous system strong enough and regulate myself well, then I'm going to be I have the chance to be a successful entrepreneur. Because if we want to do these big numbers and we want to reach here and we want to sell our companies at a certain whatever our dream is, right, we better get good at handling disappointments. So I feel like that's the biggest thing. Learn how to handle it. There will be wins, and you can't let that go to your head. Wins mean it's part of the process, but yeah, the key is to handle those better, the downs better.
Awesome. Now, Sherry's asking, I think, Malu, this question would be quite apt for you. For those who are hesitant to launch their own business, what is the first step that they should take to build that confidence?
Okay, I think first of all, I think you need to do the math. Sometimes we think that starting your own business is this super expensive affair that you're never going to be able to do. Put down the numbers. What does a business license cost? How much is going to cost you in terms of time? With bare bricks, bare minimum, how can you start? And compare that to the amount of money you're spending on some gold bangles or some jewelry for yourself or some holiday that you didn't even enjoy that much. And then buy your freedom. I think buy your freedom, put a price to your life. One of the most important exercises I did when I was quitting ARN is I actually measured the cost of my life. I said, okay, I currently live in this kind of house, but I would be happy if I had what? And I found the rent and I put it down. What is my car EMI going to cost me? I don't need to drive a Rolls Royce. I'm actually pretty happy in a low budget car. Okay, so that's what it's going to cost me. And these are my non-negotiables, right? My non-negotiable is sending this X amount of money to my mom every month. My non-negotiable is having enough money in the bank to take a flight to go see my sister when I need to. So I put those down. And when you put the numbers down, there is no hiding from the fact that you actually can start that business. But I think a lot of people don't have the guts to put the numbers down and do the math.
As women leaders, how do you think the landscape for women in business has changed in the last decade? And what do you think needs to change moving forward?
So actually, there was a very interesting study that was done post-COVID, right? So a lot of women left the workforce post-COVID. It came because of the like crazy pressure that women were under to manage education. Something goes wrong in the school Zoom call, it's the mom who gets called. Can you sit with them on their lessons? The caregiving roles in families increased manifold. And so what happened was a lot of women quit during COVID, and there was a surge in the number of women starting businesses in the year 2022 and 23. So actually, most of those women ended up being either in fashion, healthcare, they were in nutrition, they were running gyms, or they were personal trainers. There was a lot more focus because I think what happened was a bunch of women quit their jobs because they simply couldn't take it anymore. And they asked themselves, okay, what do I really care about? What am I going to invest this fiery feminist energy in? And when they asked themselves, what's important to me? The answer was, what's important to me is children. What's important to me is my health. What's important to me is taking care of myself. So salons, self-care products, all of this saw a massive boom. And now we're on that upswing, but I feel like we've got to make the upswing really last. And that I think is up to women like you, Toshita, and Rashi, and myself in helping the next generation. Like, I'm constantly asking myself the succession plan. So, who's next in line? And are they prepared? And
Yes.
do they have the skills that I wish I had 5 years ago, and 10 years, and 20 years? And like, for me, that's my long run goal, right? So, I think that's the 10-year game that we should be looking at. Not really us as much as who's next to sit on the throne.
Interesting. So that's it for today's episode, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your time and expertise. It was such a fun conversation.
Thanks a lot, Toshita. Thanks for having me. This was so nice. Thank you so much, guys.
It was amazing. Thank you, Toshita.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And to our listeners, remember, if you have any insurance questions, just ask away. DM us on Instagram, follow Policy Bazaar UAE, or reach out to us on any social platform. We'll see you in the next episode with more valuable insights and expert advice. Till then, take care and keep growing.
You were listening to PolicyBazaar.ae's The Policy Project. We've got you covered.